All right. So we had one question that we didn't talk about in our last support session. It is this: how do I grow group coaching beyond 10 people in a group? This is Sarah's question. It feels like it won't be intimate enough, and I've been in groups where it felt like it wasn't. So we didn't have time to cover that in our support session, but we want to do a special video, short one, just to answer this question. How do I grow group coaching beyond 10 people in a group? Feels like it won't be intimate enough, and I've been in groups where I felt like it wasn't. So let's start. Rob, go ahead. Why don't you just kick us off on the answer to this question? We'll spend a few minutes talking about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, a couple things. One is it's valid. One of the things that we've noticed, and I don't have we don't have a scientific study on this, but in terms of people really knowing each other, is we've observed that at the 12 to 15 person mark, the people don't seem to know each other as intimately in their lives. So there is a legitimate factor there where you're thinking about what are you trying to create? How can you create a real sense of community for people where they really get to know each other? There's a couple of things that you can do as you're scaling. And one of the key things as you're growing up, so like, let's just say you're having the same group and you're growing the group from 10 people to 12 people to 15 to 60 to 100 people. How do you create a level of intimacy? And what you do is you're thinking about, metaphorically, when people are tribes, there is at least one scientific study that says a tribe, a community is about 150 people that you can kind of hold relationships together with. So let's say you don't go beyond that 150 person threshold. What will happen is that as you're going through, you're still creating a common culture for people. You still have everyone together in a shared aspiration. But within that, each group of people have certain things that cause them to vibe or connect with each other. They may have a similar challenge to each other. They may live in the same geographic area. They may have a similar type of energy with each other. So start noticing as the group is scaling and growing bigger, where people would naturally gravitate, where their energy is attracted to, and then enable the group to start creating pods within the group itself so that they even have a chance to connect with each other a little bit more intimately. Maybe they create a separate group, separate WhatsApp thread, some kind of a communication with each other. They may even choose to meet on off days when the group itself is not meeting, where they're talking about their specific situation and circumstances. So that's one of the natural ways to do it. When you're in the session, maybe I'm just going to stop there because there's a couple of strategies in the session, but I'll stop there. And Daniel, if you want to expand or say anything in addition to that.
I think what you're really getting at, Rob, is allowing the group to sort of take on a life of its own in different ways. And we talked about self-organization a little bit ago, which is if the group wants to, they can start working together in a forum that is self-created or provided by the leader. So if you have a Slack group, for example, you could have channels. If you have pods, they could have their own meetings. I'm in groups where people are self-organizing their own sessions around the topics of content. And so there's lots of ways that it can self-organize, and you can make that a natural part of the community as you scale up, especially in groups that are getting larger. So that's kind of my take on what you said, Rob.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. But I do think we want to talk about in session, because I think the question really revolves around in a session, how do we keep it feeling intimate? How do we help people feel seen, heard, and even the sharing in a session? So when we're designing a session, what do we want to think about for the experience of a group that's more than 10 people? Let's say it's 20, let's say it's 100, let's say it's 1,000. And maybe 100 is probably a good way to talk about, good one to talk about today.
Yeah, the primary tool, we're thinking of Zoom itself, but any online platform tool is the breakout room. And so you're right. You cannot, for instance, if you were to share a specific deep thought, what's your vision for the following year, and describe it in great detail. You're not doing that in a group of 100 people, or that's your entire session. It's just people sharing. Actually, it's a 3-hour session and people are just sharing. So you create breakout rooms. And then you do that, and depending on the needs of the group, you can create breakout rooms where people are pair sharing, where you're going very deep and having a chance to have people think and brainstorm and communicate back and forth with each other. You can grow with groups of 3, you can grow with groups of 5. We've noticed that in breakout rooms that you want to hold the size of the breakout room to probably 6 people. Again, I don't have scientific evidence about why that number works, but 6 enables people to make a deep connection, to hold what other people said, to acknowledge it, and to think about it. And when it starts growing beyond that, even that starts to get a little bit wonky. The good thing is on Zoom, you can have 150 people and create groups of 6 without any problem at all, because the Zoom limits will allow that. If you have a paid Zoom account, of course, and if you're a coach, you'll have a paid Zoom account. But whatever platform you're using, breakouts would be the primary way to do that. And then as you're forming the breakouts, you have people go deep within the breakouts, and then they come back to the main group and they do report outs. So you might appoint a spokesperson, you might have people share in the chat box, but you want to have the deep connection in the breakouts, a report out in the main room where you're capturing the best of for everybody else, and maybe even showcasing some of the insights that were developed that would be beneficial to the other groups, so that people didn't feel like they were missing out within the session. So
I love all of that, Rob. It's really good. Breakouts are a really powerful tool, and you don't have to make 6. You can make it 2 in a breakout. Like sometimes you want to do pairs, sometimes you want to do trios. It depends on the kind of topic that you're talking about and what you want them to do and accomplish in the breakout. 2 to 6 is a really good number. As Rob said, as you start getting higher, you lose a little bit of that intimacy that you're designing in. And as you do the breakouts, the larger group is, the harder it is to do them yourself, especially if you want to assign people to specific people. And you don't necessarily need to do that, but you can have help to do that. Have an assistant. At that scale, you probably want to have an assistant anyway on your Zooms or a co-facilitator, so that you can do that effectively with breakouts. Part of the breakout, the key though, is setting that intention with the group ahead of time around, we're here to create a safe environment, and reminding people of how to do well with those breakouts, to be sharing openly and to listen and to acknowledge, like, those are behaviors you want to really ingrain in your community when you send them into a breakout. That way they can actually create a space for that intimate community. And not everybody's going to be as skilled as that as you are as a coach at that, but that's okay. You are role modeling how to do it as a leader, and then you send them into breakouts with that understanding. Another tool you have though is the chat. And with 150 people or 100 people, the chat is not that useful in some ways, because it is going to scroll by real fast. But you can still use it, especially ahead of those breakouts, to create some basic connections and basic feeling of being seen. So if you, where are you all from? Hey, just type that in the chat. Everybody puts their location. Then people can say, you can ask them, hey, did anybody see a location they didn't know where it was, or they didn't recognize or haven't been to? And if so, just they put a yes into the type that place into the chat or something. Then then you have another flurry of activity. And that's okay. Like, people will still feel somewhat heard and seen by that. And you can even call out a couple of places, those you can call out specific people to get them to feel slightly more connected and intimate. Another thing you can do in the large group is do a joint visualization or a joint meditation with everybody, and then send them into breakouts to talk about their experience with each other, because it's all about shared experiences to create intimacy. You create a shared experience. That's one level of intimacy. You reflect on that experience. It's another level of intimacy when you're doing it with other people. So if you know that everybody's doing the same thing you're doing, you feel more connected. And when you go to the breakout, you talk about that ramps that up. And then the instructions for the breakout need to be super, super clear, so you don't stumble over it. So you maintain that sense of connection from the pre-activity to the breakout activity. And so having those really clear instructions and steps is really good. So if you're designing for 150 people, really think through those instructions as well.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Anything you want to add here, Robert? I think that's a pretty good set of answers for now.
Yeah, I think so. Those are the primary things that enable you to scale. The point is that with group coaching, you absolutely can scale. And it's one of the beautiful things about group coaching is you can continually adjust and experiment and create a feeling where everybody is learning from everyone, and do it powerfully so that you can grow your business.
Yes. And so the last thing I'll say then is, you made me really think of this, Rob, is When you move from one to group, that's a step change. When you move from like a group of like 3 or 4 to a group of 15, maybe 20, that's a step change. When you move to a group of 100, that's another step change. And there are techniques and there are ways to make that still feel as intimate as it can feel. And where that occurs is in your design. You got to think through the design given the size of your group. And those designs are different based on the size of the group. So what works at 3 to 10 people will not necessarily work at 20 to 40. What works with 20 to 40 will not necessarily work the same with 100. It may actually, in some cases, actually work from 20 to 100, be about the same, depending on what you're doing. But there's a different level of design thinking that goes into those as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So don't be afraid of it. Just know it's there. Know we can support you on that. Know there's lots of ways to do it. And don't be worried. Don't let your worry about scaling prevent you from doing it, because you'll find the solutions with us.
Exactly. Love it. All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah, for the amazing question. And we will capture this and send it to you now.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Let's just